From Stomp the Yard to Ride Along to Girls Trip and many more, Will Packer's films have collectively grossed more than $1 billion at the box office, with 10 opening at number 1. To outsiders, the unabashed confidence that has driven him since his college days, when he was trying to sell a micro-budget indie film, may look like arrogance. To Packer, that's just what it took to make it on his own terms. In his new book, Who Better Than You? The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big, Will Packer provides a master mentorship by sharing secrets to success honed from working with the biggest stars in the world. As Kevin Hart says of working with Will Packer, quote, "I became a student and I learned from the way he was moving. The man helped me grow and gave me the knowledge," unquote. And now to discuss more on his new book, Who Better Than You? The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big, we have legendary Hollywood producer, Will Packer. This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast, and I'm your host, Ramses Ja. All right, Mr. Will Packer, welcome to the show. We have been very much looking forward to having this conversation. Talk to us a little bit, man. What's going on in your world today?
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to be here. Listen, we live in a time right now where people's whole existences are under attack, right? Your value is under attack. Mm-hmm. Your ability to live your best life and be successful is under attack. It has never been more important, Ramses, to understand your value, but not just understand your value, to be able to get other people to understand your value and to know how deserving of success you are. Mm-hmm. So I live my life like that. I am somebody who absolutely believes that you need to be able to tell your story. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to. One of the things that's interesting that I love that my parents did when I was growing up is they put me in debate class. And I always encourage people, if you have kids or if you are a teenager in high school, and you have an opportunity, take debate. I didn't want to do it because the cool kids weren't in debate. Yeah. Cool kids were out running track, playing football, basketball, right? I wasn't an athlete. So my parents put me in debate. I didn't want to be in debate, but I actually found my voice. And in debate, you learn how to formulate an argument and then defend that argument. Man, if there was ever a time when you need to make sure that you can formulate your argument and defend it, especially in defense of yourself and your right to be successful, it's right now. So that's the kind of thing that, I think about a lot. That's one of the main reasons that I wrote the book. And it's one of the reasons I'm happy to be here today, because you all are a platform that is literally about giving information to people and to a community and a culture that people are trying to keep information from.
Well, I'll tell you what, sir, I love that energy. And as a person who lettered in speech and debate, didn't realize that it would bring me here. But I have on my letterman, I have my football and my basketball, my track, all that stuff. But I have speech and debate there. So we might have a little bit of a similar story in that regard.
I like it.
I feel like maybe there's something there. One of the things that we do on the show typically is we start our stories at the beginning with our guests. Now, obviously, you're a person who's very successful. Your name is all over the place. I did a deep dive on you before having this conversation. I realized that the roots run even deeper than I thought. So for folks who may not be as intimately familiar with your background, you mentioned a bit about, your parents putting you in speech and debate class. Talk a little bit about, growing up, what inspired your passions to pursue, what it is you're doing right now, and sort of what led you to our conversation today. We'll do that before we get into the book.
Of course. Listen, I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I was a kid I was middle class. I had a 2-parent home, and I had parents that instilled in me early. And this is absolutely the foundation of the success that I've had. My parents took me like Simba in The Lion King. Mm-hmm. They took me to the highest mountain they could find, and they lifted me up and said, "Son, everything the light touches can be yours," right? I had parents that told me that you can be anything you want to be if you're willing to work hard for it. If you're willing to put in the effort, anything is possible. And as a young kid, I had the audacity to believe them. And that's very, very important. It's important that, we tell that to our kids and to our youth, because that's when they're the most impressionable and they believe these things if we tell them, and they can be true. And so I grew up in St. Pete, and I was always somebody that was astute in math and science. Yeah. And so I got a scholarship to attend an HBCU.
Mm.
Florida A&M University. Very, very proud FAMU graduate. Shout out to Florida A&M. And I didn't want to go to FAMU. I didn't want to go to an HBCU. I had good grades, high test scores, all that. I want to go to an Ivy League school. I felt like that's where I deserve to be. That's the best of the best. That's where I want to go. And I was actually headed to Penn, and I was going to enter into the Wharton School of Business. So I had looked up, they're one of the best business schools in the country. And my parents said, well, how much money is Wharton offering you, in scholarship money? I said, well, they're not offering me anything. Like, they're like, we let you in. Be thankful, right? You're welcome. Mm-hmm. They said, well, what's Florida A&M offering you? I said, oh, FAMU's offering me, full ride scholarship. They're trying to get more African Americans in the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And they want me to go there and be an engineering major, and I'll get a full ride scholarship. And they said, guess where you're going, young William Packer? So it was the best decision that was ever made for me. Sure, it wasn't my own personal decision. I went to FAMU, and that's actually where I hooked up with a buddy. He was one of my fraternity brothers, one of my line brothers. I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And we together, he wanted to be a filmmaker. It was his dream. And I helped him to make his very first movie there at FAMU, which was called Chocolate City. Mm-hmm. I didn't have film school pedigree, didn't know the mechanics of how you make a film project, but we were hustlers and we were dreamers. And we went out and raised a little bit of money and shot a movie there on that campus, and Hollywood couldn't care less. And this is a very, very important lesson that I learned early on. I felt like I needed to make a project that impressed the gatekeepers, that impressed the important people, the people with the statuses and the titles and the resources. They couldn't care less about our little tiny movie. But you know who did care? Students at Florida A&M University, mm-hmm. our peers. And they cared in a huge way. And it showed me that if you make something, you don't always have to make it for the quote unquote important folks. We spend so much time chasing people with titles, with money, with brands, and not pouring into the communities that support us or the people that actually want us to succeed when they are what you need. The reason I got Hollywood to finally pay attention to me is because I made money without me. That's how you do it. Yeah. Because I had a core audience that was happy to see themselves on screen. So Chocolate City was that first movie, and that taught me that, you know what? I don't need to go to Wharton. I don't need to go off and get an MBA and learn how to sell widgets. This is my widget right here. This thing that I've done. What is this called? I had no idea. Somebody said, oh, that's called producing. You were the producer. I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a producer. And my career was born. And along the way, I fell in love with the art of storytelling.
I love that. Fantastic. I'm glad I asked that question because I think it gives a little bit of background and context to the energy that you're bringing to this conversation. That's just, a man with passion who's followed his dreams. And that culminated, at least in part, in the book that we're discussing today. So talk to us a little bit about what inspired Who Better Than You, The Art of Healthy Arrogance in Dreaming Big.
You know what? I wrote this book because I have people that come to me and say, can you mentor me? Mm-hmm. Can you show me what it took for you to become successful? And I realized that over my 3-decade career in Hollywood, working with some of the biggest names, biggest personalities, most successful people in the world, that I've also worked with some of those same people, some of the most toxic people, some of the most insecure people, some of the most negative people in the world. Mm-hmm. And I have learned skills to navigate not only all those various personalities, but I've also learned what separates some of the most successful people from some of the people that are just desiring to be successful. And oftentimes it is the understanding and the belief and the faith that you deserve success. That is the number one thing that holds people back. People oftentimes don't feel like they deserve success. Some of the most successful people in the world, they feel like not only do they deserve it, they're predestined for it. It's going to happen. And they walk into rooms with that level of supreme confidence. And when you walk in with that kind of confidence, it changes the way that you interact in those rooms, the way that you answer the phone, the way you wake up in the morning. Everything you do is different when you have that level of supreme confidence that says, I deserve this and I'm going to be successful, whether you know it or not, you should. Whether it happens today or tomorrow or next month or next year, it's coming. And that confidence is a muscle. It's a muscle that you can build. So I wrote this book. And the book is very much in my voice. It's high energy. It's also very funny. I'm telling stories of, interacting with people like Kevin Hart, who's one of my best friends, but who I also call a spawn of Satan because he's tried to stick my career more than once. I talk about Beyonce and how she repeatedly told me no, she wasn't going to be in my movie Obsessed, and how I finally convinced her, and then that movie opened #1. And I tell stories about, Steve Harvey, Idris Elba, all these people I've interacted with. And the point of the story, Rams, is to make sure that people understand that my journey has been very carefully and strategically built from this belief that I could do it and that nobody's voice, no matter who they were, was more important than my voice. And that my voice kept telling me, you're going to be successful, even when I wasn't. Yeah. I graduated from FAMU in 96. My first #1 movie wasn't until Stomp the Yard in 2007. That's 11 years, brother. Yeah. That's 11 years where I was eating ramen noodles and answering calls on a desk, working for a tip service and, delivering newspapers, selling newspapers. Like I was doing anything to just make ends meet. So it's a long time. I was not an overnight success story, sure. But I had this belief and this faith and confidence. And so somebody out there listening needs to hear that because they also may feel like, oh man, do I deserve success? Can I be successful? Am I doing the right thing? And so I talk about all the various principles that got me to where I am.
Well, you mentioned, someone out there listening might be, confronting the same set of circumstances, or they might be, maybe perhaps hoping that one day they will be able to, pursue their passions or, whatever the case is. Talk to us a little bit about who you envision reading the book. Is this a young person who's, about to graduate high school or just started college? Is this a person who's well into their career? And whoever this is, what do you expect them to take from it?
Yeah, it's so interesting because as a movie producer, when I go into making a movie, when I decide whether or not I'm going to make a project or not, I always think about who the audience is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, really, really specifically. When I have a movie that comes across my desk, I think about a very specific person who that movie is going to be for. So, for example, with my movie Girls Trip, I thought very specifically about a woman named Sharonda, and she lives in Detroit, and she's got 2 kids, and she's a pharmacist, and she's divorced, and she goes out with her girls on the weekend for wine. And she goes to the movies every now and then. But when she goes, she wants to have a good time. She doesn't like horror. She doesn't like thriller. She doesn't like stuff that's going to make her sad. She doesn't like period pieces. She likes to go and escape and have a good time. And Sharonda was my model for the movie Girls Trip. And I do that for every movie that I make. Who is it for? So I did the same thing with this book. So when you ask about who this book was for, I thought about 2 people specifically. I thought about somebody that is in their 40s and 50s who are already into the throes of a career, but are ready to pivot, ready to make a change, ready to do something different, not totally satisfied and totally happy with where they are in their lives right now, and think that more is out there, better is out there, greater is out there for them, but they don't know how to do it. And they are understandably apprehensive and anxious about making a major life change. And one of the things I talk about in the book is the power of the pivot. And the other person I made it for is somebody that is a millennial Gen Zer who is about to graduate college or recently graduated college. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's out there and hasn't found their passion yet, who is trying to figure out what is my place in the world, right? They've either got a college degree or maybe thought about going to college, but they're in their early 20s, maybe late 20s, and they're trying to figure out, how am I going to kickstart my life? Because I haven't found the thing that that I feel like I was put here to do. I
Yeah.
haven't found the thing that is waking me up every morning going, I have to do this. And there are a lot of people like this. And one of the things I say is that that's okay. You don't have to find that thing, right? You don't have to just wake up and expect your passion that you're going to do for the rest of your life to hit you in the face. It didn't for me. I did not have a passion for movie making initially. I did something that I was good at, which was going out and raising money, finding audiences, self-distributing. And later, while doing things that I was good at, I found my passion in my love for storytelling later. But I didn't wake up saying I want to tell stories. I just was doing the things that I was good at, and I found enjoyment in it, and then ultimately unlocked my life's passion. It's more often that happens in that order than the other way around. It's okay if you haven't found the one thing that you feel like you were put on this earth to do. It's okay. It's not too late. You can still find it. But you got to double down and triple down on the thing that you're good at and try to find enjoyment within that.
I think your point is well received, certainly by me, because it's amazing the similarities that I'm hearing in our stories. For a long time I was and I still am a broadcaster, radio personality, and I'm from hip hop. Hip hop radio. I'm a DJ, like nightclub DJ, headphones, turntables, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And a personality. Gave away concert tickets. Stick around till after the break because we're going to be talking about who's dating who, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And I loved it. It was amazing, but I never felt like this is what I was created to do. This is why God made this person. It was just a fun, cool job, and I could have certainly done a lot worse, so I didn't complain. And then when 2020 rolled around and everyone got outside and everyone was protesting, the death of George Floyd.
Yep.
Q Ward, and myself, we ended up starting a show called Civic Cypher that existed to foster allyship. We targeted hip hop stations because that was where we'd find potential allies and bring them over to our cause and give them the information they needed to be better allies. And we started to make content that felt true to our spirit. We had long form conversations instead of 30-second talk breaks. We broke down concepts, and then we looked back on the sum total of our lives, all of our mentors, all the paths that we walked, and we realized we brought some really meaningful perspective to those conversations. And at that point, I finally was able to have a conversation with the president of this network, and I told him that I have to do Civic Cypher. And ultimately, it ended up in me hosting this show for the Black Information Network. But yeah, it's interesting. You're right. How it does sometimes happen in an order that you might not be familiar with, and so I could certainly see people appreciating this book. Now, you did mention a couple of things. You mentioned Kevin Hart. You mentioned Girls Trip and who you had in mind when you sat down to tell that story. I'm curious, how much of your experience as a producer, with things like, you mentioned Girls Trip, Think Like a Man, Stomp the Yard, all the films. How much of that has made its way into your book? Because you got a perspective that I'm sure only a handful of people and even less Black men could tell. So yeah. I'm just curious, how much of that has made its way in there?
Oh, a lot of it. That's really the foundation of the book. The foundation of the book is a successful movie producer who happens to be African American, happens to be an African American male, who has succeeded at the highest heights of an industry where there are not a lot of folks that look like me, especially behind the camera, succeeding at the highest level, who happens to have worked with all these incredible actors and all these incredible folks from around the world and around the industry. And it really is about my story of navigating those worlds and finding success and how that's translatable to any industry. But in order to get folks to understand what I've learned and the skill sets that I've acquired along the way, I've got to tell these stories. Sure. So the book is about the stories of how I got Girls Trip greenlit and how I made Stomp the Yard, my first #1 movie after all the studios told me no, and how my movie Takers, which was another #1 movie that starred Idris Elba and Paul Walker and
Mhm.
Di,
Oh yeah, I know.
how that movie almost got sunk on the very, very first day of filming because of a big fight that was happening and how I navigated. So
Mhm.
these are stories I've never told before,
Okay.
but they're stories that I think, first of all, they're entertaining and they're crazy, right? I tell the story about how, there was an actor that didn't show up one day for set and we thought he was dead. Everybody thought he was dead because he'd gone out the night before and partied really, really crazy. And there was rumors of drugs and stuff happening and nobody could find him. And Ramses, I end up having to burst into a hotel room, literally have to get hotel security. We have to knock the door down. I don't know what I'm going to find. I'm so afraid. We find this actor and he is hungover and butt naked in the
Wow.
bed. And I'm like, oh my God, is he breathing? And I like poke him. You know how you might see like a dead cat in the park, you just poke him with a stick? That is how I poke this grown man. Like, are you alive? And poke this person who woke up, looked at me, did not recognize me, didn't know who I was, totally hungover, immediately tried to kiss me. True story. I cannot make this up. I said, first of all, we're not doing that.
Okay.
Second of all, you are late. Get your ass up. I know you hung over. It's time to go to set.
All right.
Third of all, go back to first of all. We ain't doing that. And so the story is about the crazy things that I've had to deal with on set and how you navigate it and how you get past it and how you end up still staying focused on your goals, finding success. You may not ever be in a crazy situation like I was on the day of one of my biggest movies in a nightclub with Carmelo Anthony and Kevin Hart. And Carmelo Anthony told me, "We gonna die tonight." Like he literally said those words. And we were in New York and I had to get back to Atlanta. And I had 30 minutes to get Kevin Hart out of that nightclub to get him back on set in Atlanta. We had to catch a jet that was flying back. And if we didn't get to the airport within 30 minutes for that private plane, we were not going to make our flight. It was the biggest movie in my career. My whole career would have gone down the toilet. That's the story. You may never be in that situation, right? But you can certainly learn something from the fact that I was in it and I survived. And there are lessons that apply. I don't care if you are a movie producer, an accountant, a teacher, a broadcaster, it doesn't matter. There are transferable skills that you can learn and use in any environment. And that literally is what the book is about. And it's also fun. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It's fun and it's entertaining because that's who I am. I tell stories and I make entertaining content. So I wasn't gonna make some boring self-help book. I wanted it to be inspiring, inspirational, motivational, but also entertaining. I wanted it to be a fun read or fun listen. If you're somebody that does audiobooks, I've got, I called in all the folks that are in the book. So Kevin Hart is on the audiobook. So is Regina Hall from Girls Trip. So is Idris Elba and Steve Harvey and these other folks. So it's entertaining because I wanted it to be something that you could consume, learn something from, but have a good time while you do.
Oh man, it definitely sounds like a fun read. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
We are here today with legendary Hollywood producer and the author of the new book, Who Better Than You? The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big, Will Packer. All right, so when we first started chatting, you kind of mentioned that, I'll paraphrase, that we're kind of living in some interesting times. From a lot of people's perspective, mine included, there are some forces working against, we'll call it a more progressive, inclusive future, particularly for marginalized folks. Do you think, or rather, what do you think this book could have in terms of impact on folks who feel like they're being affected by this current political administration? I know that you mentioned that this is infused with a lot of laughs, a lot of positivity, and that's a fantastic place to start. But I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, listen, I think that it is an entertaining book, but make no mistake, it is a book about making sure that you know your value. Mm-hmm. Number one, first and foremost, you know your value. Number two, that you have the ability to get other people to understand your value. Because if you are not able to get other folk to recognize and appreciate your value, then somebody who is less talented than you, who is less deserving than you, they will get the things, whatever the things may be in your life, that you deserve. Let me say that again. If you're not able to get other people to understand and appreciate your value, then someone who is less deserving than you will get the things that you deserve.
How about that?
The subtitle of the book is The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big. And my concept of healthy arrogance, not to be confused with toxic arrogance, which is about saying how you're better than everybody else, right? That's toxic arrogance. You walk into a room and go, everybody look at me, I'm better than you. That's not what we're talking about. Healthy arrogance means you walk into a room and it doesn't matter who's in that room. It can be some of the most important and powerful people in the world, but you understand that you have a right to be there and that you're supposed to be there and that you have something that nobody else in that room has. And you have to be confident about it. And in a society where you're absolutely right, inclusive ideals, progressive ideals, diverse ideals are all under attack. And there are forces and systems that are trying to hold down people that are in marginalized communities. The way that you have to combat that is with your excellence, by understanding your value and making sure that other people around you see the benefit in being in business with you and being in community with you and recognizing your contributions and your culture and the value thereof. So I'm not somebody that says, you know what, the world is a tough place, it's unpredictable, and you know, the environment is not favorable to me, so I'm just going to go in a corner and die or just be mad and yell about it. No, I'm going to say, what are the parameters? What are the metrics that it takes to be successful in today's world, in today's society, in a particular industry? And then I'm going to go out and figure out how to be successful according to those metrics and those parameters. See, I don't have 10 number one Black movies. I don't have $1 billion in box office off of Black dollars, right? I got $1 billion in box office off of American, right? I got 10 number one movies, not just in Atlanta and Detroit, shout out to my people in those markets, but I got them across the country and across the board. So you can't come to Will Packer and say, oh, you're only successful because you look a certain way or because you got a leg up or because of some program. No, I'm successful on any metrics or parameters that anybody else is. And that's very, very important. But you got to be able to do that and be successful and understand that you absolutely should use your community, use what makes you unique, use your place in society, but use that to then succeed on whatever metric, whatever parameters, whatever value system is out there that is determining success. That is how you silence those people that don't recognize your value. But one of the things you have to do is make sure that you, number one, understand your own value.
I love it. That's fantastic. Now you mentioned also, you know, while we're here, you mentioned the subtitle of the book, and you talked about healthy arrogance versus toxic arrogance, right?
Yes.
And you know, you would imagine that people would know the difference, but I'm glad that you broke it down. And indeed, I had a note here for you to break that down, because there are a few pieces of advice from the book that I wanted you to expound upon. And I'm glad that you took the first one. So I got a couple more for you. But I appreciate you kind of delineating healthy arrogance from, you know, arrogance in the way many people, you know, perceive it as that sort of insolent, off-putting pride where you feel like you fly above other folks. Now, there's another piece of advice from the book. Convince people your goals are essential and vital. Now, I want people to read the book, but I want you to expound on that piece of advice just to give people a glimpse of what they're going to get when they pick up this book. Again, convince people your goals are essential and vital.
Absolutely. You have to understand that everybody is always thinking about what's in it for them, for themselves, right? True leadership is getting people to align with your goals and your value. See, when I talk about healthy arrogance and walking into a room and what you add to a room, the real key to success in any room is to get other folks to understand that you have a commonality of value. Mm-hmm. If I walk into a room and I say, Ramses, I need you to follow me. We're going to lift this box and take it and put it over here in the corner. Well, you're thinking immediately, well, why am I helping you lift the box? What's in it for me? That box looks heavy. Why does it need to go in the corner? I was over here, eating hors d'oeuvres, crudité, having my drink, right? I don't want to go over there and help you lift the box. So the first thing I have to do is to get you to understand that lifting the box will help both of us. Like, what's in the box? What's the reason for it to go over there? What is it about this action I'm asking you to take that could benefit you? And if I'm able to get you to understand, oh, yeah, you know what? That box actually looks better in the corner. And I want this room to look good. And I think that this is a good thing for the room to move the box. Then you're going to help me move the box.
Sure. You
have to be able to get people to row in the same direction in a metaphorical rowboat, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're able to do that, you have a much better chance for success than somebody that's just going out saying, hey, this is what I want to do and y'all should follow me. No. You have to get people to understand it. You have to, first of all, understand people. Everybody's thinking, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. Why am I doing it? What do I get out of it? So start there. Good leaders are able to get the teams and the people around them to support a common vision and a common goal. Mm-hmm. And so if you can make sure that your goals and your vision align with the people around you, they will help you to achieve those goals.
I love that. Okay, I got another one for you.
All right.
Again, directly from the book. It's the work you put in when nobody's watching that makes everyone pay attention later. It seems self-explanatory, but I'm sure there's a little bit more there. So expound.
Yeah. No, listen, this is very important because we live in a world where everybody is always talking about everything that they're doing. Social media obsessed world, right? Mm-hmm. One of the phrases people say is pics or it didn't happen, mm-hmm. right? Sure, you went out and ran a marathon. Where are the pics? Where's the video? Or you're training, for a marathon. You're about to lose weight. You're about to start your own company. Well, let me see it. What's happening? And we feel the pressure to show everybody what we're doing every step of the way. You know what you do when you do that, though? You lose focus on your own goals. You're so busy trying to show other people what you're doing and your progress and get other people to cheer you on for your progress that you're exposing whatever it is you're working on, whatever project, whatever goal, whatever mission, your baby, so to speak. You're exposing it to the world before it's ready. The work you put in when nobody is looking makes everybody pay attention later. I have a theory that I call stay in the lab. Stay in the lab. When you're in the lab, you're working, you're focused, you're grinding. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And don't worry about feeling the need to validate the work that you're doing to everybody else before you finish the work. It's not ready yet, right? I didn't post chapters of this book online before the book was done. No, I needed to go back and edit it and re-edit it and re-edit it again and then get it ready. And then when it was a complete book and a complete story with a beginning and an ending and a middle and chapters that said what I wanted to say, then I showed it to the world. We are so busy trying to make sure that we get likes and comments and posts and reshares that we're not staying in the lab. Put in the work, grind, put your head down, focus on your goal. Then when it's time, release it, show everybody, because then everybody's going to come pay attention. But it was the work you put in when they weren't looking that made it matter.
Fantastic. Well said. I think that this is about as necessary a book as I've ever seen. And,
wow. Thank you.
I know that in addition to that, at least our listeners here on this show, getting a chance to get a sense of your personality, get a sense of, who you are, how you move, the energy that you have about you, the frequency at which you vibrate, so to speak, is that, folks are going to want some connective tissue. So I do want you to plug the book. But in addition to that, any social media, any upcoming projects outside of the book that you want people to support, any websites, anything like that before we let you go?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm easy to find on social media, Willpower Packer, which is very apropos because I believe you got to have willpower. So that is. And by the way, Ramses, I was a DJ in college too.
Oh yeah.
So yes, you're a professional DJ. I was having fun while I was in college DJ, but I still, what I was a good COVID DJ. Everybody got on and was doing the live stream. My COVID DJ parties were rocking.
Okay.
I was having a good time. I got the turntables. I got the whole thing. I don't do it as much anymore, but I did have some fun being a DJ. So Willpower Packer, my DJ name was DJ Willpower.
Okay.
I'm Willpower Packer on all my social handles. Obviously, the book is out now wherever you buy books. I always tell people try to support, local bookstores, try to support Black-owned bookstores. Nothing wrong with Amazon. I get it. Everybody's going and shopping with the behemoth. Nothing wrong with that. But try to support local businesses when you can. My book is available everywhere. So whatever platform you buy your books on or buy your audiobooks, it's out there. I've got several projects that I'm working on as a producer. You're always juggling a bunch of things. Right now on air is my the longest running African-American dating show in television. And it's called Ready to Love. And it airs on the OWN network on Friday nights. And it's a lot of fun. And so if you're into reality shows, you're into dating shows, check out Ready to Love. You can easily catch up or just jump right in with whatever the latest episode is. And last year, we actually released Fight Night, which is a limited series that is airing right now on Peacock. And we won the NAACP Image Award for Best Limited Series. And I'm very, very proud of that. And it stars Sam Jackson, Taraji Henson, Don Cheadle, Terrence Howard, and Kevin Hart. And he's playing a dramatic role.
Okay.
And he does an excellent job with it. So it's a true story based on the biggest heist in the history of Georgia that actually really happened after an unsanctioned Muhammad Ali fight. Okay. So that's called Fight Night. Check it out. And just continue to support Will Packer Projects. But most importantly, continue to support yourself. You owe it to yourself. You deserve success. Go out and get the tools necessary for you to go and find your own success. That's what I want. That's what I want for my people, for my community. I want us to know that we are just as deserving of success as anybody else.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, you know what? I couldn't be happier with the conversation that we've had. I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us here on the Black Information Network. Q, of course, regretfully, had
what up,
to
Q?
be absent,
That's
but
all right. We held it down for you, brother. We'll catch you next time.
We did our best. I can't thank you enough. You're an inspiration. Your commitment to, your people, your commitment to your passion, to yourself, is infectious. And, obviously having a book out that people can, purchase and kind of have a piece of that, in their lives, especially for folks kind of dealing with a tough time right now. I couldn't be happier with the work that you're doing. And so my hat's off to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time and your insight. Once again, today's guest is legendary Hollywood producer and the author of the new book, Who Better Than You? The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big, Will Packer.
Thank you for having me, fam.
This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show was produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I'm your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. And join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.